To invite everyone into our conference room. The afternoon session will begin in around 5 minutes. So and now our panelists and our moderator is ready for the discussion on the topic of foreign investor perspectives on anti-corruption in Southeast Asia. And so, first of all, I would like to welcome back all of you from the lunch break. And I hope you are enjoyed your meals and are ready to another afternoon of panel discussion, which is exciting sessions ahead with our foreign investors' perspectives on anti-corruption in Southeast Asia and linkages between corruption and transnational organized crime. And firstly, let's delve into session 2, where we will hear from investors and legal analysts on their perspectives regarding anti-corruption in our regions. And please join me in welcoming Ms. Pin Sira Prabhasiri, our moderator. She is the manager of Thai Private Sector Collective Action Against Corruption 2 Stage. And our panelist, Mrs. Vibeke Lyssand Leirvag, chairwoman of the Joint Foreign Chambers of Commerce in Thailand, Dr. Kirana Limpapayom, COO Banpu Public Company Limited, and Mr. Vitor Geromel, legal analyst, anti-corruption division from OECD. And now I will pass the floor to our panelists and our moderator.
Welcome back, everyone, from the lunch break. How was the food? Good. I hope you have a full stomach and ready for the afternoon session. No one's sleepy, right? If anyone's sleepy, please raise your hand, and the hotel staff will accommodate you with coffee or tea, or if you need a more stronger caffeine, let them know. Okay, so this session is on foreign investors' perspectives on anti-corruption in Southeast Asia. It's a privilege for me to be a moderator. As Kun Chanchanok previously mentioned, I'm the manager of the Thai Private Sector Collective Action Against Corruption, which was founded about 14 years ago. We are one of the longest lasting collective action against corruption in the world, with one of the most members, companies, private companies who are our members. Currently we have about 1,600 companies who are a part of our collective action. So without further ado, this session, it's going to be a great opportunity to hear about how foreign investors or Thai investors who invest abroad have perspective or have experienced anti-corruption innovations, or how they manage corruption risks abroad as well as in Thailand. Regarding Kun Vibeke, who has been in Thailand for quite a few years with business in Thailand as well. The first round, I will let everyone introduce themselves for just a little bit, starting with Kun Vibeke Lyssand Leirvag, who's the chairwoman of the Joint Foreign Chamber of Commerce in Thailand, and also the founder of Felicia Design, a jewelry manufacturing company. It's based in Thailand. Okay, let's start with Kun Vibeke.
Thank you very much, friend. I hope everybody didn't eat too much because then you'll fall asleep during the presentation. That's not good. So my name is Vibeke Leirvag. Short name, nickname is V. I've been in Thailand for 35 years. My professional role is I have a jewelry company, an SME, with 150 workers, manufacturing for leading brands around the world, with focusing on high-end silver and gold manufacturing. And as a volunteer role, I'm been the president of the Thai Norwegian Chamber of Commerce for 4 years. I was the vice chair of Joint Foreign Chamber of Commerce for another 5 years, and now into my second term. So this is my third year as chairwoman of Joint Foreign Chamber of Commerce in Thailand.
Thank you. And next, could we please have Dr. Kirana Limpapayom from Banpu?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kirana. Currently, I'm serving as a Chief Operating Officer of Banpu Public Companies. We started off in 1983 as a coal mining company northern of Thailand. And we started our first investment in Indonesia in the year 1997. We've been in Indonesia for almost 30 years now, and at the moment we've been doing business in 9 countries. Although we started the company from coal mining in Thailand and then moved to Indonesia, Australia, but at the moment we are also under the transformation process, under the new CEO, starting 1st of April this year, including myself, to become Chief Operating Officer for the new CEO. Right now, we are transforming ourselves to be an integrated energy company. So although we started from coal, but we're not going to have a new coal investment anymore. But just to finish up what we have raised, I mean, the commitment to the government in the countries where we operate in, the commitment to the customer. But we are transforming our coal mining, coal as an energy into gas. So we've been investing in shale gas in the US starting 2015. So now Banpu Public Company is one of the biggest, not one of the biggest, if not the biggest in terms of productions in Texas, in terms of gas producer. We've been operating as a gas producer and explorer in Texas for 9 years now, and we are ramping up our production to be able to export to Asia Pacific region in the future. And at the same time, for about 30 years now, we also been having another subsidiary called Banpu Power, where I was a CEO until 1st of April before I moved back to be COO of Banpu. Banpu Power also been investing in coal-fired power plant in 7 countries, and now moving to focus mainly on combined cycle gas turbine and also renewable power in the past 10 years because of the climate change issue as well. We also have the 3rd flagship within our Banpu group called Banpu Next. Banpu Next is a bundle of green energy and what we call energy technology, all those EV ecosystem, and also all those related to battery and also clean energy and green energy going forward. So all together, our investment across the groups now is in 9 countries, and we have very few investment left in Thailand, just 1 power plant in Rayong, BLCP, where we hold 50%. And some of the operations of Banpu Next that we just started in Thailand probably a few years ago. Some of you may have used our service before. We are the part owner of MoveMe, which is last mile, first mile transportation by e-tuk-tuk that probably you have seen in some of the, if you use BTS or MRT on a regular basis, probably good chance that you are one of our customers. So we now operating mainly outside Thailand, and I think it's my honor to be invited here and share our experience going forward. Thank you. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you very much, Dr. Kirana. And next, please have Mr. Vitor Geromel, we did pull some connections, and Victor flew all the way from Paris, from the OECD, to join us today, and he'll be leaving tonight. So let's make the best, of his time here. Okay, please introduce yourself a little bit and your experience working with anti-corruption.
Thank you very much, Pin. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope I won't bore you to sleep after lunch, so we try to keep it more lively. My name is Vitor Geromel. I am a legal analyst in the OECD Anti-Corruption Division. Just to briefly tell you what we do, the OECD Anti-Corruption Division supports the work of the Working Group on Bribery, which is one of the OECD committees, and is responsible for monitoring the implementation of the OECD Convention to combat bribery of foreign public officials in international business transaction, which is a big name. It's not very good for branding, so we convention to call it the OECD Anti-Bribery Convention. The Anti-Corruption Division also is the division responsible for elaborating business integrity standards. And very quickly, the Working Group on Bribery, it's composed of 46 countries. They are all parties to the OECD Convention. The 38 OECD member countries plus 8 non-OECD member countries. So it's a convention that is open to all countries. Contrary to the UNCAC, which covers pretty much the entire corruption phenomenon, our convention is focused on the supply side of foreign bribery. So we look at the people or companies that pay bribes to foreign public officials to obtain advantage in international business transactions, here considered both trade and investment. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to be speaking in this panel, because I think it makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victor. Okay, before we begin our real questions, just to introduce a little bit about this session, how it's important. As you know, foreign direct investments and foreign investors are a vital part to economic development as well as political development in countries around the world. And the ADB, the Asian Development Bank, recently published statistics that even though with political turmoil, economic recessions all around the world, ASEANs actually witnessed a rise in foreign direct investments. So in, I think, 2022, it was a record high, $224 billion in 2022. So, I mean, with this rise in foreign direct investments, with money coming into Southeast Asian countries, we may want to see also an improvement in terms of anti-corruption policies, measures, something that will boost our economic even more. We also have witnessed a lot of regional integrations. We have seen ASEAN Economic Community. We have concluded the RCEP, the regional comprehensive economic partnership, and with many more. We are signing a lot of FTAs. We are negotiating FTAs with the EU. So a lot more economic opportunities coming up. So with that in mind, let's start with our first question. To go in line with this conference theme, there's innovation. We try to convey a more positive note towards the public, towards investors, as well as the public sector. So innovation and corruption, in your opinion, what are the correlation between the two? Or, how does business innovation help reduce corruption? Or how does corruption hinder business innovation? The word innovation here, I want you to interpret it in a broader sense, not just corruption innovations, but, innovations as Banpu next with, lots of technologies involved, or Felicia design maybe, a bit technology involved, and Victor, as you witness, countries all around the world, you can share experience with the OECD findings. Okay, who's more comfortable? Maybe Dr. Kiruna. Ladies first. Okay, now yes.
Okay, so thank you. I go first then. I think how to start? I grew up was born and bred and grew up in Thailand, right? We come from a very strong patronage society where, we're helping each other, but at the same time, we also expect others to help us in the bad times too. And that is good, if you talk about friend and family and everything. But then now you're talking about business. You're talking about business that need to have a real performance. We come from private sector. We are listed company in the Stock Exchange of Thailand, Banpu Public Company. Our major subsidiary, Banpu Power, is also another listed company in Stock Exchange of Thailand. Our subsidiary in Indonesia, PT Indon Tambang Raya Mega, also listed company in the Jakarta Stock Exchange. I talk about we are being one of the largest gas producer in Texas, US. We also about to list our subsidiary in Texas, in New York Stock Exchange too. Meaning that when you come to business in our groups, we are working with the highest standards of anti-corruption in the world. You're talking about the international standard of stock exchange around the world, in Thailand, in Indonesia, and now in the US, where there are also strong Security and Exchange Commission in Thai, the Golotor, where very tight rule and regulations that we have to comply, and we are very happy to comply. Because I think in the past 40 years of the company history, if I just want to, if I may bring up one slide on, just to give the, thank you so much. It just to show the journey of the group in the past 40 years, and I think you can see what we've been through. As I mentioned, we started as a coal miner in northern Thailand, 1983. And we also started as an IPP, independent power producer in Thailand. I think in the 1990s, we invest in Indonesia, starting. Can we move?
I think you can use the clicker.
Yeah. We went to Indonesia year 1997, right, and been there since. Australia 2010, and in the US 2015. Yeah. We have learned a lot over time, and I think because of our major businesses have always been in mining and power plants, so we've been we have had a lot of exposures, to what the potential corruptions in all the countries that we've been investing in. This is fact, right? Especially where, like I mentioned from the beginning, that where we come from, I think in terms of social value, we value the helping each other so much. And sometimes it crossed the line, many times it crossed the line into business performance as well, that we have to be really careful because we are comply with the highest standard of stock exchanges around the world. So we've been learning a lot, over time. We've been, I think one of the, right now the current innovation that we are employing and try to speed up the adoption rate of the innovation is to use the digital technology, in particular artificial intelligence, AI, in our business, in our procurement process, in our business dealing. As we know, I think a lot of companies been using digital technology to streamline the process, but also increase the transparency in the process. And because the technology, digital technology like blockchain or everything online is so difficult to intervene with the process. Even if I'm COO of the group, if I have a preferred vendor that I work with, I prefer to work with, I would have to go along with the process. You just cannot interrupt the process at any point. Otherwise, there will be a record and you can be audited or you can be, get in trouble with the board of directors. But that is probably in the past 4 or 5 years where digital technology has become cheaper and available. But from the beginning, since 1983, we've been through a lot of things that since the digital technology was not yet readily available and was not that at this cheap price. So I think one of the innovations, actually it's not innovation now, but one of the methods that we've been using from the start is to use this kind of high standard to, you benchmark, you use those high standards like, stock exchange around the world, and you put your company into those standards. So you have peers that you can benchmark to. You have some of the regulators to come and audit you on a regular basis. There are some self and third-party assessment that you have to be exposed to. I think those are not high-tech, but very useful way, to fight with the anti-corruption within and outside your organization. And lately, as I mentioned, in the past 5 years, especially since COVID, the adoption rate of digital technology has been much faster, and I think right now we are putting a lot of capital into our digital process. For example, since last year, we have invested and launched a new e-procurement system. Internally, we call it Coupa system, where not only digitalize the process of procurement, but also digitalize all the vendor database, record, and everything related to the vendor in order to force our vendor and supplier to have a policy on anti-corruption as well. And because of the AI, right, we have quite a big operations in Indonesia, in US, in Australia, in China, in Japan, in Vietnam, where else? 9 countries. All the online process, will help all the people in different countries that may have different level of awareness to work on the same high standard that the headquarters want them to do. Yeah. So I think by using and right now going forward, on one hand, we also increase the adoption rate of AI into our operations. We do a lot of optimization in our production. We do a lot of optimization in our sales and logistics. Having AI in, the benefit is that once the machine learn the data, replicate and tell us the good solution, but at the same time, it's so difficult to intervene with those process of data, input data collection as well. So, all in all, I think the adoption of digital technology is, I think, one of the best innovations that any private sector companies could do to speed up and to better fight with the corruption issue. On top of those policy, on top of those standard that I think many leading companies around the world have been used to benchmark themselves against. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Vibeke, please, innovations and corruption.
I think, as you said, innovation and corruption, you can combine this in different words. Innovation can, for ease of doing business, is a must these days. You need to implement new technology. You need to be innovative. You need to embrace the change. But when you embrace that change, you also have to realize the risk of it. I think Police General Vacharapon, he mentioned it in his opening speech today, how you can use innovation as a tool to identify corruption. But I think if you don't do your check and balance on this, it could also create corruption. So I think, especially for SMEs, I think this is very challenging, because technology and innovation, when it comes just to embrace that change, is harder because sometimes you struggle just to stay in business. Many of our members, especially after COVID, they're going through a very challenging time. There's a lot of demand on innovation when it comes to, just digital transformation, when it comes to ESG, sustainability processes, compliance processes. We live in a world that changes very quickly, and for SMEs it's quite difficult to follow that. So I am carrying two hats here today, so I think it's very important for me to specify these two things. I carry the hat as the chair of an organization that represents 36 chambers between 8,000 to 9,000 companies. And there I carry the hat of my own company, which has only 150 workers. So what I say will at times be covering the view of our members, but I will try to also specify when I do it from a personal point of view. It's just important that I specify that.
Thank you. Victor?
Thank you very much. When you proposed this question, being a bit of a nerd, I went to Google and tried to see some literature about business innovation and corruption. And what I found was some recent studies, some of them indicating in some countries, maybe in some sectors, supporting the so-called greasing the wheels theory that in this case, in this very specific condition, corruption was good for business innovation. Most of the other academic articles I found showed otherwise, supporting the sanding the wheels theory and this greasing and sanding, and that is quite the contrary. The corruption actually, it's a problem, it's an obstacle for business innovation. I think corruption is a systemic phenomenon, cannot be taken isolated. So even in the places where there is some database evidence that corruption somehow benefited business innovation, the problems and the harm corruption brings to the societies where this business operates, it's much bigger than any kind of benefits these companies could have benefit from. So that said, the first question would be how business innovation reduce corruption, and then I would make reference to our standards. We have the 2021 anti-bribery recommendation that complements what we have in the anti-bribery convention, and the anti-bribery recommendation recommends our member countries to incentivize the use of innovative technology to combat corruption. And these companies, again, should invest in building and designing adequate compliance programs, using these innovative technologies to train employees, to conduct due diligence, monitor compliance programs, etc. And from the government side, of course, digitalization, use of big data, this is all also important factors. But then, this is what I'm saying, and I totally understand that this applies mostly to big companies. So, what about the small and medium-sized enterprises? And this is where the second question makes a lot of sense. And how does corruption hinder business innovation? Again, big companies can invest a lot of money designing very interesting and adequate and robust compliance programs, but what about their smaller counterparts? And in this case, what we have in response is the need to address the demand side of bribery. So it's the need to apply for the countries to enforce consistently their domestic bribery laws to avoid that their officials go and solicit bribes from these companies, or even in some cases extort them. They're victims of duress. And recently, the United States enacted the US Foreign Extortion Prevention Act to go after foreign public officials that solicit bribes from companies. But this was a big thing in the international anti-bribery community, but the fact is, all countries have domestic anti-bribery laws against their own officials, and if they are enforcing these laws, it will prevent these officials of asking for bribes, for instance, when these companies go there and apply for a license or any kind of innovation that would depend of the state to somehow operationalize. So this would be the two answers, trying to look from both the optics of the big companies, but also the small and medium-sized enterprise. And this would be kind of the dynamics that we'll go over for the next questions as well.
Great, perfect. Did you want to show your presentation, Victor? They just...
It was said it would be the first slide. So
yeah, I know. I saw your slides. Okay. So thank you very much for the first round. You've heard about how innovations and corruption. I think when we did, Victor, when you do the literature review about this topic, innovation and corruption, I actually found an interesting study stating that in a country where, private sector are driving for innovations, they need to make contacts with government officials in order to apply for license, for patents, and so on. And that's where corruption normally takes place. So this study kind of like go against our conventional understanding of innovation and corruption. So you might find countries where trying to upstep with their technologies, instead finding more cases of corruption. Anyway, okay, let's move on to our next question. This question will be directed to Kun Vibeke and Dr. Kirana. So when you're considering where to invest, as a foreign investor, or you kind of like stationed in Thailand right now, and Dr. Kirana, who's been around the world, what are the key factors that you look for, and how, like the CPI index, for example, the Score Corruption Perception Index, how important is this index to you when you're considering where you're moving?
Good. Then can I ask for my slides, actually? Oh, I need a clicker, too. I should learn how to use a clicker. So the first thing I'd like to do is when we look at foreign direct investment, if you look at Thailand, that's an area that has had a lot of focus for the past year. I would say our present Prime Minister, Seta Thavisin, he is very active on promoting foreign direct investment. And when you look at foreign direct investment, there's lots of opportunities in Thailand. Geographical location, there's no question, we are in a very good location. We like to say that this is the gateway to ASEAN. So we try to attract different type of investment. We have through BOI, Board of Investment, EEC, Eastern Economic Corridor, we are looking at, I think, total 18 target sectors that we are trying to attract new investment. But I represent an organization that's called Joint Foreign Chamber of Commerce in Thailand. Now, 36 chambers with around 8,000 to 9,000 members. They're existing investors, but investors that may also expand, may want to relocate. So I advocate a lot for the fact that don't forget about us. Whenever you talk about foreign direct investment, it looks like it should have only be new investment that comes in. But the fact is that those that are here, they understand the Thai culture. They understand the language very often. They know how to operate. So that's the fastest way, in my opinion, to grow investment. Now, what would an investor look at? Joint Foreign Chamber, you see already, we do our work. It's a volunteer job. We have a working team and we have working groups. In our vision, we are the voice of the foreign business community for the past 48 years. And in our mission, one of the things to look at on our mission which I think is related to today, is to be a thought leader, contribute to economic enhancement, competitiveness with transparent and good business practices. And I think that's one of the areas that corruption and competitiveness actually is two words that we should look at carefully. Now, ease of doing business. Mr. Massot, this morning, he called us the superpower, the business. I like that. I'm going to steal that little slogan. Superpower with business ethic and power to say no. So I think this is a slogan that we need to keep inside. But if you're looking at ease of doing business, things that will be looked at is political and economical stability, it's regulatory environment, rule of law, and is actually the rule of law implemented and followed, and transparency. Transparency is a very important word. Infrastructure, environmental factors, workforce availability, market potential, quality of living, and one more thing that I'd like to add is culture. So when you're looking at investing, you will look at how will your company and your industry, how will you fit into the country that you're going to? So we mentioned EEC, Eastern Economic Corridor, we mentioned the BOI, Board of Investment. They focus a lot on new target industries, and in those target industries, definitely technology, robotic, innovation, all of that is focus. Now, is corruption an important factor in this? Well, government efficiency on fighting corruption is instrumental in this. High corruption level, as an investor, you will look at this as a risk of increase of cost, but an effective governance in combating corruption enhances investors' confidence, ensuring a stable and transparent business environment, and it's a very important part of ease of doing business. If a government acts efficiently on trying to improve the standing that they have, if they try to implement transparency, it will attract foreign direct investment. And it's important that you communicate these things too. So CPI, I mean, it's a word that has been used a lot. CPI ranking has been used a lot for the past 3 years because the CPI ranking is something that will affect investments. It's not a question. In the past, we used to relate to World Bank reports, but the World Bank hasn't published a report since, I think, 2019 was the last one. So now foreign investors, they will look very carefully at the CPI ranking. Now, how has Thailand done on the CPI ranking? Well, not the best. If we look on the past 4 years, we did improve for a while. We were down to 109, I think, back in 2019. 99 in 2019. But right now, the score is 108. Yeah, 108, correct. So the 108 out of 180, that is not good enough. 35 place ranking is not good enough. So we need to look at how we can improve this. And when I say that, is the ranking correct? Well, I clearly show in this the Corruption Perception Index, CPI, is a useful snapshot. But will it always show the real situation? In my opinion, not. I think sometimes we need to be better at communicating the good deeds. We need to communicate the positive changes that are being done, both from the private sector and from a government point of view, and not only rely on negative news. So in my opinion is that CPI ranking is important. It is a tool being used, so we need to improve our standing. But improving that standing, what we are doing today is part of improving that standing, because we have public and private sector working together to make a change and make a positive change. I think if we can improve that, then we will be able to boost and increase investment.
Thank you. I really like when you say it's important as well, not just reaching out for new potential foreign, investors, but try to retain those that are already here. Okay, Dr. Kirina, could you please?
Thank you. So this round of question, probably I talk from the perspective of Thai investor going into Southeast Asia and actually Asia Pacific, right? Probably just want to bring up that one slide on just to give the visual aid to the audience so that they can understand on the page that I'm talking about. Anyhow, we are investing in 9 countries, right? When we do the investment, speaking from private sector company, we are doing a very similar thing to other private companies when we decide on investment. We are doing the evaluation, financial evaluation of the IRR. We look at some quantitative and qualitative measures. We look at the financial return, discounted cash flow model, very conventional, very typical investment decision 101 that I think other private sector companies are doing. We are no different, and but I think what we, I don't know about other companies, but what we emphasize a lot in the past at least 15, 16 years that I've been with Banpu Group is on the calculation in the weighted average cost of capital, WACC, where we put in a lot of qualitative factors, try to quantify qualitative risk like corruption risk, geopolitical risk inside the cost of capital that we use to measure against our investment decision. Because normally when we make investment, we look at the IRR, we look at the NPV, we look at funding options, how much debt we can leverage in order to make this particular investment. And we normally want to have like 3 to 5% spread of the IRR over WACC, over WACC. But our WACC internal use is quite high because we have always factored in those qualitative factors. So I think to answer shortly, we think that once you go to invest in other countries, you can see from the slide that we now invest in 9 countries across Asia Pacific in the past 40-year history of the companies. The policy, the regulations toward anti-corruption in each of the host country is among the major factor that we also consider when we're going to make investment decision. I just give you one example. We've been talking internally, actually I've been talking internally that right now, if we observe the flow of capital in the past, probably since COVID, 2021 until now, in the past 3 years, the flow of capital within Banpu Group, now a lot of capital is flowing to the US, meaning that we put more and more. You have limited capital, right? You have to make a decision where to go, where to put money in. Interestingly, since 2021 during COVID, I spent so much time in the US. We expand our base in Texas, huge, to become one of the major players in Texas in terms of gas and gas-fired power plant in Texas. We now have 2 offices in Dallas-Fort Worth area and 1 office in Austin, Texas. Then the first time when we made investment in power plant, 2021, when I spent many months in the US there, I remember the next day after we acquired first power plant, I asked one of our staff who came with the asset that, do I need to go and have a courtesy visit to the, for example, governor of Texas or the government officer of Texas or not? The executive from the power plant that came with the asset, the American guy, he looked surprised. He said, yeah, if you want to go and meet them, we can make appointment, but what for? This is one extreme example from the U.S. where they leave private sector alone. Yes, there are certain process that you need to get approval from the government. For example, when we invest in utility, which public utility, they need to consider whether we do enter into monopoly for the critical public utility or not. If not, you go ahead. Everything is based on your commercial decision and comply with rules and regulation, federal rules and also state rules. But that also extreme questions. But we also have some other extreme examples on the other end, where there's a lot of government at local, provincial, national, that we have to get license and permit and talk to them along the way. So that also increase exposure, in terms of potential corruptions, demand or request, from those, in some other countries. So my point being that when we're gonna make new investment decision, we look at factors like CPI, and we also look at factors from our experience. And we are being private sector company, we just factor in those costs into our financial model. And I'm sure foreign investor looking at Thailand also do the same, whether they have additional hidden cost, contingency cost or not when they come to do business in Thailand, and what is the percentage of contingency they have to put in to get through, all the necessary processes. I'm not saying that we need to face with corruption along the way, but as a private sector company, we have to factor in all possible costs, possible expenses, and the like of corruption perception index would help us to actually lower our cost of capital and make a more better sound investment decision making everywhere we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, very interesting. So experience from investing in the US and investing in countries in Southeast Asia. Dr. Geromel wouldn't name any names here. But yeah, I was growing up in the US, and back then I couldn't think of any chance of giving bribes at all. Like, there's no chance for a private citizen to give bribes to traffic police. Well, there's not really a traffic police in the US, but yes, different culture, different risk, but those are the things that we take into account when we want to invest abroad. Let's move to Victor. You are very well equipped with OECD findings, publications, and you have interviewed, I bet, countless investors and business. I would like you to talk a little bit about how, if you could share some anti-corruption policy and measures and internal controls that you think are effective, that you've witnessed from many countries around the world.
Sure. Can I have the slides, please? Thank you. The magic button.
The down
the down button. Thank you. There we go. So, anti-corruption policy and measures to curb corruption risks. Again, I'm going to come back in the 2021 anti-bribery recommendation, and the first policy to curb corruption risk is to incentivize the private sector to adopt anti-corruption compliance programs or anti-corruption measures for the companies that are not in a position to adopt a program. The first incentive we can mention is for sure enforcement. And then they're risking a bit to go too much into cliches here. It's the need to find the right balance between the carrots and sticks. And enforcement, it's a huge incentive. One of our reports in 2020 called Drivers for Compliance show that we wanted to know from companies what are the main, why they adopt compliance programs. And the main reason that came out from this survey was fear of enforcement actions, followed by protection of reputation. So this says a lot about the incentive that a consistent enforcement practice from member countries, how it resonates in the private sector. But then let's go to the carrot part of it. And the 2021 recommendation brings a list of possible incentives for compliance that includes granting public advantages, including subsidies and licenses to companies that can prove they have an effective ethical behavior, incentives in public procurement, awards and recognition for companies that are doing a good job, and finally, incentives through law enforcement, which is when caught in misconduct, if the company can prove that they implemented an adequate compliance program, they'll get mitigation from their sanction. In some cases, this mitigating factor can even lead to the exemption from prosecution, but we need to make it very clear, according to our standards, this cannot be automatic, and this should be decided by an authority, a technical authority, and not be an automatic result. Last year, we teamed up with the UNODC and the UN Global Compact to update the resource guide, which is a document from 2013 from the UNODC, and now we just published a new version full of case studies and good examples on how countries can incentivize the private sector to adopt effective anti-compliance programs and measures. This report is available online, so all the interested people will find a lot of really interesting cases. But that's not it. In 2022, the OECD published the Toolkit for Raising Awareness and Preventing Corruption in SMEs, which we had the pleasure to have Vibeke at the launch event. And basically, this study came out from our monitoring, the WGB monitoring work. We realized through the monitoring work that most of our countries had issues reaching out to the small and medium-sized enterprise to raise awareness of their corruption, foreign bribery risks. They all got recommendations, and then when they came back for the follow-up report, these recommendations were often considered non-implemented. So based on this track record, we started a research to see what would be the effective measures to bring small and mid-sized enterprise, to incentivize them to also adopt anti-corruption measures. And here, note that I'm not saying programs, I'm saying measures, because programs, it's something that requires a lot of money. And again, the first difficulty, SMEs are a huge amount, represent a huge amount of companies. There's no harmonized concept of SMEs. Each country adopts its own. And for instance, in the European Union, an SME can be the local baker or can be a multi-million euro tech company. So the sector is very much different. So the first step would be know with whom you're talking with. So target specific companies by size, by area of operation, and try to identify their risks and their needs. And once you do this, you can have a good awareness-raising strategy. And who should do that? The first obvious answer is government authorities. But government authorities alone, as we saw from this experience in the working group on bribery, were not able to reach out to these companies, given this complexity. So private sector is also very much well-positioned to do this work. And I can say here, especially through the collective action work, that is also one of the measures that the 2021 recommendation incentivized. And here in Thailand, we have a very good example of the Thai CAC. And private sector, government authorities, international organizations, civil society, academia, they're all in place to help build an effective awareness-raising strategy. And to finish, the toolkit brings these 10 initiatives that they're just an example of successful initiatives. We have boxes with case studies, and these initiatives can be implemented in an isolated form or combined depending on your awareness-raising strategy and the resources you have to implement it. So then you can see that we indicate who would be the best stakeholders, the stakeholders that are best positioned to help building each one of these initiatives. And I invite you all to access the report and get to know better what are these. And here I can mention, for instance, incentivized mentorship. And we found examples of big companies that bring the small and medium-sized enterprise in their supply chains and actually share their expertise in anti-corruption programs, share templates, invest in training. Another part is facilitate whistleblower protection channels. We all know that after the presentation from Anika, that the whistleblower protection is an area that requires a lot of improvement in the region, and this is also something that the private sector should care about if they have effective channels, and how can the country government authorities support these companies to build these channels and the adequate protections. So,
perfect. As we spoke yesterday, we met Victor yesterday, you said this publication, this report was published in 2022, and this is halfway through 2024, and you said it's already outdated. Could you please elaborate a little bit more on that? Like, what will you have added to the report?
I know it's counterintuitive when you write a report, but I'm actually happy it is somehow outdated with the examples, because now we could see, and I'm not saying this is a direct influence from the publication because I don't have data to support this, but we could see that in the last 1 year and something, a lot of new interesting initiatives of collective action initiatives, government authorities, civil society, being really creative on how to approach small and medium-sized enterprise with this very important, providing them with these resources to have basic anti-corruption measures that are cost-effective, and they can really change the way they do business in the areas where they are operating.
So everyone should look up the OECD toolkits for our SMEs. Very useful. As you know, in most countries, I think SMEs make up for more than 90% in most countries around the world. So SME make up for more than 90% of companies in each country around the world. So Kun Vibeke, could you please share some anti-corruption policies and measures that you have adopted, or have you heard your colleagues at the Joint Foreign Chamber of Commerce adopted when doing business in Thailand?
I don't think I could speak to that other slide. So I do have a comment when it comes to that as businesses we adapt. Actually, it's getting harder and harder to adapt as businesses, let's say if you're flexible in it. Most bigger corporations, they have a zero tolerance, and they have to comply to the OECD regulations, especially if there's European companies. So even if you wanted to, let's say, adapt, you don't have a choice, you can't. So it is complex. If we don't change, if we don't have an international regulation where we look at compliance in the same way, then sometimes, definitely, it would remove that country as the possible country to invest in. And that's where the CPI is extremely important. I really don't know how to use this clicker, do I? No. As I mentioned, one of our missions as Joint Foreign Chamber of Commerce in Thailand is to be a thought leader, contribute to economic enhancement, competitiveness with transparent and good business practices. Within our working team, for us, it's important to be part of the change. We don't just say, this needs to change, that needs to be done, you do it, this is wrong. That's the wrong way. We are part of the change. We have a responsibility to be part of the change because we are part of the problem. If you're willing to give, you're already part of creating corruption. So I think it's very important that we all think that way. When we want to make change, we need to be part of that change. Now, Thailand, I mentioned culture as one of the areas of ease of doing business. And culture is important when we talk about challenges and when we talk about corruption, because the way that I look at corruption may not necessarily be how they look at corruption in Vietnam or in Malaysia or in Indonesia or in the US or in Thailand. It may be part of doing business. That's how business is done, whilst in Norway, where I come from, absolutely cannot be done. So Thailand, in order to look at the global side and on foreign direct investment, the challenges we have is resistance to change. There is a resistance to change in Thailand. I've been here 35 years. I think I'm allowed to say it. There is a resistance to, the old way. And this is not just when it comes to corruption. This is in general. At my company, if I try to change a production process or I try to implement some new technical ways of doing manufacturing, they're like, no, we know how to do it. We'll do it the way we did it in the past. So there needs to be a willingness to change, not a resistance to change. There's a complex legal and regulatory framework in Thailand. To make change is close to impossible. The biggest obstacles when it comes to ease of doing business, and unfortunately also the area where we face the most corruption, is on work permit and visas. And why is it? Well, the law hasn't changed since 1976. And for 48 years, we have been singing the same song. We've been saying, we need change, we need change, we need change. And we're not asking for regulations not to be followed, but we are asking for the process to follow today's business environment. And as an example, we still have to go and take doctor's certificate to verify if we have syphilis or if elephantitis. So this is things that, as a CEO who's looking from a big corporation from US or Japan, it's almost offending to be asked those questions. If you're looking at work permit and visas, you're looking at around documentation that you need to provide. You're looking at between 35 to 40 different sets of documents. They all need to be original and stamped. We have digitized the process a bit, means that you can go and ask for them, you can scan them, and you can upload them, and then you can still have to go to immigration and to Minister of Labor in order to get the approval. Now, for bigger companies, this is not really a big issue, because if your turnover is more than 30 million, then you can go to the one-stop service, which is a very good place, and for all the years that I've been there, I have never faced any corruption. But for smaller companies, it's part of the process. So I think this is an area that we really need to look at, and we need to change. And then I come to the next one, speed of change. We need to speed that change. We cannot spend the next 48 years to make that change. I think we need to speed that change. And then compliance expertise. We talk about change. We speak big words. Big companies, they will know what they mean. But if we're talking about CPI, OEDC, we're talking about compliance, policies, etc., SMEs, I'm sorry, they just go like, huh? So the toolkit, it may be outdated, but it's a golden tool for SMEs up until you have made the next version of it. So thank you for having that. And education. Today I've heard very little about education. And to me, change is all about education. Now, education starts, for me, when it comes to corruption, it goes top down and bottom up. And bottom up means that start teaching your kids that corruption is wrong. This needs to go into not primary school, it goes into kindergarten. For myself, I've had that part of, from kindergarten, you learn that stealing is wrong. Don't take anything that doesn't belong to you. You need to start from the kids. That's how we learn. I mean, water wastage. My kids will tell me, close the tap, Mama, because, you're wasting water. Or trash separation. You need to separate the trash because it's good to do that. You learn that from your kids. So in Thailand and all of Southeast Asia, actually everywhere, we need to learn from our kids because they are very intelligent. So the education system needs to change. We need to implement this from the bottom and up. Then education within your own organization. As companies, we have a tendency to say that, yes, we have a policy, we are in compliance, but only the management knows what it means because we don't educate our staff. And that's where a lot of the corruption happens, because at the top we think we're very transparent, we're very much in compliance, but very often in procurement processes, very often when an SME tries to enter an opportunity into a bigger company, there's no way to enter without some T money. So I think, there's a lot of areas that we can look at, and I spent a lot of time on those areas. Sorry for that. So opportunities, share and align good practices with international standards. Very important to do it by international standards. If not, you will lose foreign investment. Enhance local governance and institutional frameworks. Create a level playing field in business and level playing field in opportunities too, because today it's not always the same opportunities depending if you're a foreign investor and a Thai company. Build stronger and more ethical practices and attract foreign investment. It means that you have to have a strong focus on the rule of law and actually implement the rule of law. Where wrongdoings are done, they need to be punished. A lot of good things are being done by the government. The Prime Minister, I think 2 days into his job, he joined the ACT Act event at the train station. What's it called? The train station. The big new train station. So he joined the event and Bangsu. So at the train station, he joined the event and he made a commitment to work for zero tolerance. In 2018, we had the Organic Act, and not many people know, but NACC, they have guidelines in 4 languages. But I had a session with the OECD, and most of the people in that room, they actually didn't know that it existed. So we have the tool, but we are not very good at communicating that we have the tool and the guidance to people. The Prime Minister has also made a commitment to, or he's applied for OECD membership. Now, this will take time. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It will take, 5 to 10 years maybe. But we started a journey, which I think is very important. And education, again, I bring it back, but we need to change and implement corruption, the fight against corruption into our education system. This is extremely important. Today, I think we already have a proof that we're already working on this. We have a collaboration between government, public sector, private sector, academia, and civil society. We need to continue to work like this. Last week, we had a session with NACC. Next 2 weeks, I will be in Basel for a 2-day conference. So this is not, I am so good and I'm doing all these things. This is just to show that around the world we are collaborating and we are working for change. And I think I'll stop on that. You've already seen the slide, but I think there's a lot of good work done, and I think we need to focus on the positive, and we need to focus on the fact that government alone can't do it, OECD alone can't do it, private sector can't do it alone. If we don't work together, we will fail.
Thank you so much. Wow, there are so many good points. I hope everyone's taking notes. Yes. Oh, yes. If you are interested in the slides presentation, please contact the organizer. Vibeke, you've touched upon education a lot. I would tell a story of myself when I was young. I mean, I'm in my 40s now, but in school, we've never been taught about corruption. We've never been taught about conflict of interest, bribery. But growing up, I think family would be, the first contact point where you learn about how to behave in a society, how to not give bribes, even when you're asked or demanded. My mom, I keep gossiping about her. My mom is a professor. She was teaching in Lat Krabang, which is an outskirt of Bangkok. I think 30, 40 years ago. We started having mobile phone. She wouldn't charge her mobile phone at work. And one day she forgot to charge it at home. And all day I couldn't contact her. I was so worried. It was a long way from home. I was worried if she would have an accident. I was crying. I was calling her friends. Nobody knows where she was. But she insists she wouldn't charge her mobile phone at work because she called it Fai Luang, which is like the public resource. And that's it, just one event. And you learn a lot from that event. You also touch upon the speed of change, how we are very resistant to change. I think we get comfortable with the way we've been acting or behaving. This is, Thai culture, a little bit it's okay. But I really like, we spoke one time and you said, it's absolutely 100% possible to do a clean business, a clean and transparent business, if you want to. That's a really strong statement, and I will quote you on that and put it on our website as well. I forgot to tell the audience today that both Felicia Design and Banpu Company are members of the Collective Action Against Corruption in Thailand. Dr. Kirana, as a company that invests in many countries in Asia, Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific, as well as in the US, how does Banpu manage different anti-corruption rules or regulations in different countries? And please share with us maybe your interesting stories.
Thank you, ครับขอบคุณ Probably I show my last slide in the pack to just to add my talk. Thank you. So I think right now like I mentioned before, we have 9 countries in our portfolio and going forward. So probably we're going to focus on those 9 countries. We might have some additional countries in the near future, but in the meantime, probably we focus on those 9 countries that we've been in, and to a certain extent, we become local in those countries already. I think everywhere we go, I totally agree with Rebecca on the culture. We emphasize a lot on corporate culture because we believe that being a multinational companies, we have about 10,000, 12,000 staff across 8 countries, across 9 nationalities. We also have people from outside, the countries that we invest in. So everyone comes with different backgrounds, different beliefs, different mindset. So we've been emphasizing a lot on the strong corporate culture, what we call Banpu Heart. And those are one of the major things that we use to align the standard across our operations. I think going forward, let me just flip to the last slide. I think going forward, we're gonna focus on three key things. Yeah. I think for the conventional business that we are having, and we are transforming from coal player to be gas player, we're gonna operate. We're gonna use the term responsible operator as our motto. Of course, I think from anti-corruption policy, we also have a zero tolerance policy. We do not allow any form of corruption, whether it's going to be conflict of interest or bribery or anything, in our operations. But, we live in the real world. We know that we have a strong policy, although there might be some people in some of the countries that might have more exposure than others. So I think apart from the strong corporate cultures that we are using it now in the form of Ban Puhat, the transparency, the anti-corruption mindset, the awareness is one of the key corporate culture that we are emphasizing on. Together with the very comprehensive anti-corruption policy, actually we adopt a lot of examples from OECD guidelines in drafting our policy. And we also been having a lot of in-person and e-learning platform to educate our people on those anti-corruption mindset and awareness. We believe that corruption it may look good in shorter term. You may get a project easily, you may get some easier projects, but in longer term, it's a much bigger cost for business that we should avoid corruption at any cost. We also have been certified by third party. We are part of CAC. I think organization, coalition like CAC is very important for private sector because everywhere we go, we will be just one corporate citizen. We don't know who to turn to. For example, if we are approached by some people, promising to get projects in return for certain form of benefits, we need to have this kind of CAC everywhere we go. At least we have some friends who we can ask for, examples, what to do, who to turn to when we have that kind of situation. So I think the coalition for private sector is very important. For example, in Indonesia, we also have like a Thai Business Council. When I worked in Indonesia 2015 to 20, I was the president, and I think anti-corruption coalition is one of the major agenda that we join together among Thai companies investing in Indonesia. So I think we should expand that. We should formalize it, in all the countries that we have investment in. We also have a strong policy to appoint local compliance officers. Those would be a contact person for any of our people in each of the operation when they are approached by, to have or are exposed to a corruption request. And we also have a regular audit by our internal auditor and also outside party. So I think all in all, going forward, our business will still be in our traditional mining and power plant, although we are going to move to not coal mining anymore, but to other type of mineral mining to support green infrastructure of the world. We are going to be establishing ourselves to be a major gas player, at least in the region. We are going to transform ourselves to invest in more and more environmental friendly business. For example, right now, our US subsidiary BKV headquartered in Dallas-Fort Worth, we are the first Thai company to invest in carbon capture and storage in Texas and Louisiana. We already have operating project, and we also have a strong intention to bring those technology to come back and help Thailand and other neighbor in Southeast Asia. Um, we also been investing in those new technology frontier. We have installed and already operate one battery farm in Japan, for example, in northern Japan. And we are building another battery farm in Texas to build our ecosystem of the green environment. So meaning that we are expanding our business. But again, when you talk about people in different countries, I come back to the point where the extreme example of US where they tend to leave you alone, the government tend to leave you alone. We love it so much. Everything is about business performance. Everything is about the return. It's about whether we are good or not. It's about real, fair competition. That, we really love it. But understand that social context of country in Southeast Asia may be different, from the US. So probably we cannot be government-free in Southeast Asia. But I would like to encourage the related governments at national, regional, or even local level of country in Southeast Asia to review and really only have a real necessary interactions with private sector like us and leave the private sector to perform for the best economic benefit of the country that we have investment in. This is always our belief. We understand the importance of license and permitting in some countries are more important than the same industry in another country. But I think at least if the government review only necessary private and permit, reduce the exposure between government officer and private sector, I think that would encourage the private sector to work even better for economic benefit. And that would in turn benefit the countries that we have investment in. So I think for longer term, that's the only way to go, together with the use of digital technology, like I mentioned, blockchain technology to come and help. You just cannot change anything once you implement blockchain, right, for example. And also the strong policy there and the support from organizations like OECD. So I just want to echo what we've been discussing so far, that private sector alone cannot do anything. We want a coalition of private-public partnership and also a coalition like this CAC to make it even stronger going forward. It's going to be never-ending journey. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I forgot to look at the time. So sorry. I didn't know it's, time's running out. Maybe we'll take questions first, and then we'll end with, your ending notes. Anybody have questions for Kun Vibeke, Dr. Geromel, or Mr. Victor? Are you shy? Yeah, I didn't want, because everybody has brilliant points, I didn't want to steal your time. Anyone, please? Any business organizations in this room? Would like to know real life experience, how to avoid giving out bribes. Anyone? No questions? I'll quickly recap the last round, and then I'll give you the few minutes, 2-3 minutes. So today, Kun Vibeke, who's representing as chairwoman of the Joint Foreign Chamber of Commerce in Thailand, and also the founder and the MD of Felicia Design, jewelry company, has shared with us, she chose Thailand, and she's hoping for the best for the business community, for the business ecosystem for Thailand. She has come up with a couple recommendations as well for the public sector, for the private sector, as well as collaboration between public, private, and the civil society. Dr. Geromel, who represents an gigantic MNCs, Banpu Power and Banpu Next, who invest in 9 countries around the world, with experiencing many different culture, different political context, economic context, and he's come up with a very great idea: putting yourself or your company among the peers with highest standards. It's one way to pressure yourself but it's good to, keep up with those with highest level of standards. Victor, all the way from France, so I was hoping that you guys would ask about the OECD recommendations or findings. He has done a lot of research, he's interviewed a lot of companies and private sectors, and come up with the toolkits to help SMEs, incentives to bring in SMEs to have more, or higher business integrity. He understands the, pain points by SMEs. Again, they're, vary in terms of size, business conduct, and so on, and risk. But the recommendation will surely serve as a, a guideline for those of us who are from SMEs to look up and adapt and use. Maybe, again, I open up the floor for everyone. No questions? Maybe 1 to 2 statements or sentences to end our round. Ladies first again.
I'll pass it to Victor because I'd like my last slide up.
Okay, probably my last sentences would be, as a representative of Banpu Group of companies and probably to a certain degree representative of private sectors investing across nationals in Asia Pacific countries. I think speaking as a private sector, no one want to get involved in any corruption at all, no. But we just want to do our business. So I think the concept of private and public partnership in anti-corruption I think is very important. So the government sector can also understand our pain points, and at least who we can turn to when there is a request or approach on funding requests, that kind of thing. Because we private sector, we look at economic performance, and we are more than ready to comply, pay tax, create economic benefit within the country that we have investment in. So I think the partnership between private and public sector are so important that we can solve this thing together.
Well, my final words would be to keep tuned. We, as an evidence-based organization, there are some reports that will be published the next months. Would love to give you some of the highlights, but because of the time, we have one report on assessment of compliance programs that we interviewed a lot of companies, including Vibeke participating in this project as well, where we talk with the companies and try to understand what they are doing to really design a compliance program to address their specific risks and move away from ticking the box approaches. This report will be launched probably in September, October, and there was a strong focus on building a culture of integrity inside the companies, investing in behavioral and data analytics, and really being able to measure the negative. That's something that came out a lot. How can I measure the negative? How can I measure something that never happened? So it will be interesting to see, to check. Another report that is especially important for this session is the Promoting Business Integrity in Southeast Asia countries. This is a report that will be focused, directed to policymakers. And our idea with this report is to show to Southeast Asia policymakers what are the benefits of incentivizing business integrity. And this goes to strengthen their development goals, economic, social development goals, and to support all of you here to bring this report and pressure for reforms and change. And finally, we are conducting a work on the demand side of bribery, of tackling bribery solicitation, and there will also be an interesting project, especially for addressing issues for companies, how companies can be better prepared to report, to resist, first place, bribery solicitation, to record, and then to report this instance of bribery solicitation. And we have just to finalize a very interesting example. We know that SMEs are especially targeted by bribery solicitation, and we have one example of company that asks the small partners in their supply chain to come to them with reports of bribery solicitation, and they will take the risk of reporting the conduct, so the smaller partners will not have to be submitted to the risk. That sometimes are good. So as Dr. Kiran said, in the real world, things are much more complicated than what we have in the regulations. So we're really trying to reflect this the best way possible while being very strict with the standards that we all should uphold. So thank you very much. I rehearsed this a lot yesterday, so kopung krap. And
Closing statement. I didn't get to present my 2 last slides. Maybe because I talked too much before. But I think most important is set your own moral path. And that setting your own moral path, we are looking at not just the moral path of a business, but set the moral path of civil society, of the government, of any organization. Set the moral path within your organization. Set the company or the association or the group culture. And when you set that, think zero tolerance. Because a little bit is not okay. A little bit very often becomes a lot. So I think there's no middle way when it comes to corruption. Your moral path should be zero tolerance. But that doesn't mean that zero tolerance needs to be reached tomorrow. It means that you make a decision within your organization to start a journey, and that journey we need to do together. So we all play a role, and that's why I wanted that last slide there, because in this slide, it represents a little bit of what has been done in the past years. It shows our Prime Minister committing to fight corruption. This was in September 2023. It shows CAC, Coalition Against Corruption, getting an award in Philippines or in Manila last year for being the company who, or the organization that really works hard for fighting corruption. It shows the PACC event, Public Anti-Corruption Services, who signed an MOU with academia to make change. This was this year, just a few months ago. And it shows last week when Joint Foreign Chamber of Commerce, 8,000 companies, where we made a commitment to continue our work with NACC, with PACC, with ACT, with CAC, with public, private, civil society working together, and also academia to make change. So set your moral compass to zero.
Thank you very much, and that's it for our session 2.
Thank you so much for Mrs. Pin, our moderator, Mrs. Vibeke, Dr. Kirana, and Mr. Victor for sharing your expertise and your perception of the investor on anti-corruption in Southeast Asia. And so, please join me in giving a big hand of our panelists and moderator for their contributions. Thank you so much. Time flies.